Well, we say goodbye to January in today's edition of This Week in South Carolina in Session. I'm Gavin Jackson here in the Statehouse in Columbia. Today in the House activity, we saw major movements over in the House where lawmakers approved a bill that repeals the Base Load Review Act. That was a controversial law that got into place in 2007, which sent $37 million a month of SCE&G ratepayers' money to the VC Summer Nuclear Power Plant expansion project. Well, that project failed and came to light last summer, and since then, SCE&G ratepayers have still been paying for that project. However, today, lawmakers are one step closer to stopping those payments. Let's get right into it. Speaker Jay Lucas has been closely following House hearings on the nuclear boondoggle and took to the House well today to explain an amendment to the landmark bill. In a rare speech from the well, he said remedying the debacle has been the most difficult issue he's faced in his 20 years in the House.
This amendment ensures what every law we pass should guarantee: that fraud, concealment, omission, misrepresentation, non-disclosure of a material fact by a utility should never be rewarded. Concomitantly, these defined terms guarantee that ratepayers should be immune from the misdeeds of regulated entities in this state, which is our responsibility as a General Assembly. I can tell you up front, if a utility who's gone under the Base Load Review Act has been forthright in its dealings with our state's citizens, with the ORS, with the PSC, it should have nothing to fear from these definitions. If you see them thinking about appealing whether or not we can impose these definitions in the Base Load Review Act, well, then maybe they can't get over that hurdle, and it's something that we should take notice of anyway. So my question to you is, why in the world should ratepayers that you represent from SCE&G have to pay 19%? That's why this amendment proposes an experimental rate which would be overseen by the Public Service Commission that would take this rate down to zero, ensuring that the constitutional balancing requirement between utility rates and effects on utility would be continually monitored. Given what Judge Wilkins has said in his brief, I think that's entirely constitutional. Given what Mr. Ott and Mr. McCoy and the HERC group discovered during their hearing, I think that's the right place to start.
As a 119-1 vote was winding down, House lawmakers started whipping out their cell phones to take pictures of the voting board. That followed with applause once the vote was final. It will be read a third time perfunctorily on Thursday and then head to the Senate. Dominion Energy reportedly said that the House bill threatens the merger with SCE&G, but Representative Russell Ott, who co-chaired the House Utility Ratepayer Protection Committee, told me he was more optimistic.
And again, I think that is a very significant piece of this legislation and this amendment that we passed today. I do not believe it closes the door on a Dominion deal or a deal with any other utility that would like to come to the table. That option is still open. I think the General Assembly and many people have been very clear, though, that we think Dominion can do better than what the current offer they have placed on the table actually is. And so, I would hope that they would understand that this is the position that the General Assembly, at least the House, is taking, that we want to roll back those rates and give relief to our constituents. And so I hope they'll take that into consideration and continue to work to try to come up with a plan that gives more protection to the customer than what they currently have as far as rates are concerned. We did not completely repeal the Base Load Review Act. We put into place an experimental rate, and then we have continued to allow the Public Service Commission to have authority to intercede on those particular rates if the utility is able to truly justify prudence throughout that particular process. So You know, you heard one of my colleagues trying to do away with or have a complete retroactive repeal. You know, I think if that would have passed, I think that certainly would have torpedoed the Dominion offer. But I also think it would have torpedoed any chance of getting good legislation passed, because I don't believe it would have passed constitutional muster.
A Senate Judiciary Subcommittee today took up a bill that looked at judicial and constitutional officers' pay. Now, while this bill might sound obscure to you, it's part of a broader effort by Senate lawmakers to spur movement on another bill, S-107. Now, that bill deals with the governor and lieutenant governor running on the same ticket this year. You might remember when voters approved that measure, a constitutional amendment, back in 2012. Well, it's 2018 right now, and lawmakers still don't really know how this is going to work. So they're really trying to get some movement on that bill since it's stuck in a compromise committee and it's reached somewhat of an impasse. That's because senators are a little disgruntled over lawmakers over in the House that amended the bill last year to look at judicial pay. Let's get a little bit more details on this.
My reason for doing it was that the Senate was in a bit of a stalemate as it relates to the issue on 107 that we have with the in the conference committee now, and I want to give us an alternative because it seems as though that there's a will in our body to end up raising judges' pay. At the same time, there's a little bit of a stalemate in 107. I want to give us an alternative to get this conversation started.
And the Senate also amended and approved the bill H3653 today, and that bill deals with nuisance lawsuits waged against industrial and manufacturing sites in the state. Now, this gives them legal immunity from so-called nuisance lawsuits, and this bill now heads back to the House to see if they want to concur with the Senate amendments. Now, on Thursday, stay tuned because there's going to be a Senate Corrections and Penology Committee meeting looking at execution methods in the state, as well as a so-called shield law for pharmaceutical companies that provide lethal injection drugs to the state. And stick with SCE&TV throughout the 2018 legislative session as we bring you video recaps every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, live at 7 p.m. on SCE&TV's Facebook page, our YouTube page, and my Twitter account @GavinJackson. I'm Gavin Jackson here in the Statehouse in Columbia.